He had a dime for every time someone said that.
He could buy his own Fursuit.
You could buy another one.
But yeah, speaking of Abraham Lincoln, they actually are making a movie called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh, is it a trauma film?
No.
It sounds like it. Should be.
Are they still in business?
Oh, you're not staying around?
Yes, Trauma is.
Wow.
Tim Burton, though, isn't it?
Well, then maybe you can give your expertise.
The oldest independent
I didn't
film
say I was an
company.
expert.
I'm
yet.
sure.
Yes,
Yeah, I
at
would
this point
too.
they are.
I'm not, and I'm up here.
Independent or
I've built 2
Art.
suits.
Oh,
That's
they
it.
don't call themselves an art house. They know what people like.
You're always ruining everything.
We like to bother you.
Thank you.
You're fun to bother.
Creatures.
Like that one teacher that you have? That's so much fun.
I watched the cartoon version of that one.
Did you?
Yes.
We should hang out more. I only see you at cons.
I only saw the originals.
It's because we sleep when the sun's up.
Uh-oh.
Right here.
Vampires!
Vampire.
Watch out for Abraham Lincoln.
Switch room.
Quick, make sure they don't sparkle.
Sparkle, 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 sparkle.
Now it's all over your paws.
Sparkle.
Oh, vampires work like that, but we never furries left because we all got distracted.
By foam, by fur,
Fursuit.
fursuit.
Now the panel's done, and you can all go home.
Is that like underpants profits? Okay. Well, that's all we got to say, so enjoy, go build your fursuit. Okay, thanks, bye.
Class dismissed.
We'll become professionals now.
Okay, thanks, bye.
You forgot to show how to make follow me eyes.
Oh, I don't know how to do that, sorry.
I could do it with a Dixie cup.
Well, I can do it, but, you know.
Don't have to make bedroom on it.
Stick that in your eye.
Follow me eyes! That's construction. We're not at that panel.
No, that was yesterday. If you missed that one, then you'll just know how to make the body of the
You
suit.
messed that one up, too.
Yeah, you did.
That head panel was pretty informative.
I just wish I wasn't so tired for it. I just got dead.
If you have questions after on head construction, you can always ask me and the person who's not here, who I'm texting right now.
Slacker.
I actually brought up some plans.
Hey.
We are all waiting.
Bring donuts.
I get to keep your fursuit now.
$10, $2,500 in small unmarked bills.
Stop telling the class about your butt.
What does that say? My butt is what?
Rainbow.
Ronbo.
Need to dot your I.
Is that one of your suit's names, Ronbo?
That's just very militant.
Ronbo.
That's the anti-twist. The black and white one.
They kept me in a tiger cage for months.
It's the gay Rambo.
Gayest straight man ever. Anything else? Any other entertainment you want to do?
Seriously? Yes. Have to go on stage.
I'm gonna die for it.
I told you yesterday I had a lot of experience with spots, right?
Yeah, but you haven't washed it yet. They could all like wash out and make that suit just complete gray, right?
It'd be fantastic. Are these airbrushed? They're dry brushed. So just water down acrylic and go like for
If you
hours.
want to use an airbrush, I have one. I have a pretty decent setup.
I've never used them before, so I'm afraid of them.
They're
My
not that
technology
hard.
scares me.
She enjoys you.
I've actually
I do
heard
I'm
of
old.
using
I did these.
ink,
Oh,
okay.
like regular ink,
Yeah, you can do that too.
just a little like a toothbrush. And some of that you just put like a spark, like a mask, and then you just brush over it with India ink and let it dry.
Mhm.
It stays really well, especially white on black.
Well, Well, if you want me to teach you airbrushing, then come over sometime and I
But
can
that
show
was the
you.
whole hanging out with your pacer.
Oh, since we live in the same town,
I don't want to do that.
how about I make a tutorial and put it up on YouTube and you can watch it at your leisure?
Yeah, and then you can just drop the airbrush off at my house and don't ring the doorbell though, because then I would have to see you.
Oh, okay. What if I came in fursuit?
What?
What if I came in fursuit?
That would be okay.
Okay.
I'd do that.
We'll do that one then.
You just have to warn me ahead of time so I can be in fursuit too, or otherwise it's awkward.
Oh, it's so awkward.
Somebody
There's
order
a fox in my
Fursuit.
car. Why is he here? Australian shepherd.
Mom, there's a Fursuit next door.
I love them.
What con was it at where I saw?
Where are you?
There was some con that had furry.
Okay, because the class is waiting.
Sorry.
I had to put on this mediocre talent before you showed up.
He had to hire us. We did a horrible job.
Your girlfriend Rooster is
It
Yippee?
would be like,
Hi.
Congratulations.
Hey, girlfriend.
Tristan and Yippee are celebrating their 1-year anniversary.
At least he cleans up after his shenanigans.
Sorry, I'm late.
Those aren't even shenanigans.
They're mild shenanigans.
Your shenanigans are evil and cruel, making them not even shenanigans. I love you all. Oh, weren't they great? They'll be back, folks.
I hope so.
You guys are probably-
I'll actually save the panel in about half an hour.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
All right, this is Fursuit body construction. Was everyone able to make it out to the head construction? I know you couldn't, but okay. If you do have any questions about head construction that aren't too in depth, we can probably discuss them later after the event.
Probably.
Okay.
That'll work.
So since yesterday, when you could build your head, now we're going to talk everything from the neck down. My name is Pacer Fox. I'm the Fursuit track lead here for Fiesta, and to my right is Yippee.
Yippee Coyote, fandom staple for 21 years now.
You're old. Well, let's tell us about the old days and the cons when there were 2 fursuits at the entire convention. I think I went to
And staple them to each other.
I think I went to Anthrocon. There was like 8 fursuits.
Oh, God.
8. Now there's like 80,000.
Just amazing the fursuit explosion that's occurred over the recent years. Just a number of builders are a number of people building their own suits. Some of them are having just going into this cottage industry of building suits for people, and it's gotten quite a following, quite a explosion of.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great suits out there. You can choose the route of going with a fursuit builder, or you can do your own style. And a lot of times, the fursuit builder sees something that you've done, and they say, "Oh, great! I'm going to steal that." But there's a lot of room for a lot of different creativity, a lot of ways to make a lot of different things. So I guess we'll start in the body construction with the body itself. There's a couple of ways to go about doing this. This is the body for my Pacer Fox suit, and I actually used a pattern from what are the McCall's or something like that. If you go, they'll have Halloween costume patterns, and some of them are like lions and things like that. You can pick out your body type, and what it is it's basically a sheet of thin paper, and you can pin that to the fur, mark it with chalk, and then you can cut it out and sew it up from that pattern. Since it's just paper, you can make a lot of different changes to it. You can bring it in a little bit and make it a little tighter or a little looser if you need to. But yeah, if you go to your Joann's Fabrics and look through the McCall's books and stuff, you can find a lot of patterns that way. Another way to do it, more people have been going to making a duct tape dummy. This involves, you need to get a painter's, like a Tyvek suit, if you know what those are.
It's just a loose-fitting jumpsuit. You get it like Home Depot.
Home Depot, yeah, they're just a paper suit that people use for painting, and several rolls of duct tape. Now, you'll need to get your friends to help you out because you cannot do this yourself. And the more friends, the better, because once they start taping you and encasing you in that, you might get a little claustrophobic and you're going to get hot. So usually a couple of friends come over, have them start wrapping you all the way around, and once they have you wrapped, they're going to need to cut you out. And I suggest medical scissors.
I'd also seen there are these sort of envelope openers. They're shaped sort of like a lowercase e. They have a little blade at the bottom there. And there's just enough room there you can just slide it through pretty easily, but it gets gummed up with adhesive after a little while, so a 3-pack should be fine for a whole suit.
And this is something that, it's the part of the process that you really have to be careful with, because if you're using scissors or a knife, it's very easy to cut through the suit and also your friend's skin. So the medical scissors or something like that is a lot safer. When you cut them out, usually any fursuit builder, you can go online and see different tips on how to make a duct tape dummy. They'll show you, okay, make a line down the arms, and when you make that line, you want to make X's down it so you can line up those X's when you tape it back together. They'll do the same for your body through your legs. And once you have the person cut out of the suit, then they're going to, you're going to tape it back up and then fill it. I don't know what people fill it with, the newspaper or something like that.
Just something to bulk it out and get that person shape again.
Yeah, exactly. And also for what you wear under that dummy, I don't know. Some people wear clothes, but they often get cut off of you as they go along. You had a question there?
It said they had like a pair of pajamas you can buy are actually really good, like long sleeve pajamas you don't want or don't like, you just cut them up.
Yeah, if you happen to have that lying around, that's good. Just
There's cheapy ones at like Walmart or whatever.
Or you could go all natural, depending on how how well you know the people that are cutting you out of the suit.
No, I think he was meaning the pajamas as the...
Oh, as the base.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, you can do pajamas, even if they're loose fitting with the tape, they're going to come back. I've often run into a problem making duct tape dummies in that the material sometimes wants to move. So let's say you have the suit all the way down to your sleeves and you start taping it up and it starts creeping up here. Well, what I do is I'll take some paper or like a paper towel, just lay it over there and keep taping so you can get the suit to the right length. So if it starts riding up on you, just pat it with paper and keep taping along.
Yeah, you don't want to tape directly to your skin.
No, that's... Cutting you out is painful enough. Don't combine that with
Don't make it a full
ripping.
body wax.
No. Once you have it cut out and you line up your X's and you tape it back together, you stuff it, and now you have a representation of your body, and you can start cutting out your fur to the pattern that you want and sewing it almost to that body. And some people prefer that method because it's really close to your body shape, and it'll be a little bit more form-fitting to you. Have you worked with duct tape dummies at all?
Not personally, but a couple addendums to that. I've seen where people will they'll drape the body using muslin, which is a cheap, like you get it for like $1 a yard, and it's used for patterning. It's this plain sort of sheeting cloth, and you just drape it over and just adjust and tweak things as necessary, and you then disassemble that and use that as your pattern. So you don't use the fur itself and potentially waste all of that. You can repurpose your fur, not repurpose, but economize your fur usage.
Right.
I'd also seen where someone will take the duct tape dummy itself and disassemble that and use that as a pattern. Though that's kind of tricky because things don't exactly always lay flat.
Yeah, you can do that if you take the duct tape dummy and you say, this panel's gonna be white, I'm just gonna cut this out, and now that's my pattern for what's gonna be white, and then this will be brown, and what have you.
Make sure you leave room for the stitching part.
Exactly.
Exactly, you wanna go over an eighth or a quarter of an inch past that, so you have a little bit of playroom to stitch it back up.
Otherwise it's going to be very, very, probably too tight.
Yeah, exactly. Yes?
Could you avoid using the dummy if you simply took a lot of different circumference and inseam, outseam measurements?
Yeah, you can do that. Some people like to have a physical representation. If you're fine working with measurements, you can do that as well. I know some fursuit builders send you a sheet and you just fill it out to the measurements. But I've heard more have been going away from the measurements to actually asking you to send in a dummy. So I think people don't trust your measurements. But if you're working on your own suit, then you know you're accurate, and then you can work from there.
Especially if you use metric, it's much more accurate than inches.
Right, right. The other side of the tape. So once you have your patterns and everything, you can start working in things like we had questions about adding coloring or spots yesterday. Two ways to do it. You can either airbrush your spots onto the suit, or you can take an area, put the shape of the spot in, cut it out of there, and actually sew your spot in. I think that that's a better method. It lasts a little bit longer than the airbrushing.
Yeah, the look lasts longer.
Mhm.
You know, when you're cutting into the fabric and adding seams, more and more seams, it's going to mess with the integrity of the fabric a little more. So you may have to go back in and re-sew spots here and there.
Right.
But it's par for the course. Yeah, they're either going to have a slightly weaker bodysuit or it's going to bleed. So
Right.
the airbrushing is going to bleed. I mean, not you.
And then for sewing to get a decent seam, you want to take your fur, which is you got your two sides and your fur here, and then you want to sew these two together. So when you flip it back out, the seam is less noticeable than if you did it the other way. It's going to kind of just poke out the seam.
Back on the paper patterning, I wanted to mention that that the patterns are usually very generic, the ones you get in the catalogs. And what someone I knew actually did was they'll sew the body using the pattern, and then have a friend they'll test the body, they'll wear it, and they'll pin it up. They'll pin it up along the underside of the arms and along the outside seam here with safety pins. Then take it off, flip it inside out, mark the inside of where those safety pins come together, and that is your new hemline. Take the safety pins out, flip the hems out, and then sew along those lines. During that process, you want to, when you're doing the stretching and testing, you want to make sure you have mobility at least. After you put the safety pins on, just bend, crouch, stretch, and make sure nothing's tugging too much. And once you have that sewn, flip it back out, sew it up, put it back on, and make sure you still have that mobility. You can do this multiple times. I've seen where the process was done at least twice. So it's another option to do, but you know, you're going to waste fur that way.
You waste some fur, and it's more steps in the process, but you get a tighter fitting suit through there. Yes.
Okay, so let's say my hands are like the top of my hands where the fur is.
Mm-hmm.
So you sew them together how again?
Okay, the fur, you want to do fur to fur, sew along, and then when you flip it out, the seam will be less visible.
So what you want to do it kind of like this, where my thumbs are the seam, where it's kind of tucked inside?
Yeah, where the seam is now inside. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you sew it inside out.
Because if you do fur on the outside here and you sew it up, then you're going to really see the seam.
Like this shirt seam.
Yep.
Okay.
But then when you are sewing, make sure that the fur itself, not just the backing, the fur is poked inside to where you can't see any fur when you're sewing.
Right. Well, I wish I had a seam that I could show, but yeah, when you have the fur to fur together, make sure the fur isn't almost poking out of the top. Make sure it's folded in, and you got a nice straight line there.
Yeah, usually before I start hitting up the fabric to itself, the fur to itself, I'll sort of brush the fur inside so that I've got a clean edge of the backing to edge of the backing, either when hand sewing or machine sewing. But yeah.
That makes sense for like putting on muscle or inside like details, like putting muscle pockets or body details.
I haven't worked too much with that. I know on your suit you've got quite a bit. I know that it's done with foam. I just haven't had a lot of experience putting those in. I know people have.
Well, there was the person who I talked to about this one. Sorry if I can't hear me. I'm going to try to speak up to the mouth. Basically, had like a wetsuit underneath. It's almost like a small wetsuit, and then basically they sewed like pillows almost, just stuffed full of cotton. Or it was just like an empty void, and they stuffed it full of cotton to the right size, sewed it shut, sewed it to the inner layer, and then put the fur on top of it, so you can measure how much fur you need to go around it, and then you do the sewing and stitching, and then you can stitch it directly to the fabric, or directly to the pockets again.
Okay.
And that way you can double stitch those pockets in place. They don't slide around. I mean, some of them do a little bit, but you know.
So it's like a thin dive suit.
It is almost.
Okay.
Yeah, I've
Or
seen
you
a
can
number.
just get a thing of Under Armour and sew it to it.
True.
Yeah, I've seen a number of methods of different methods for body padding. You can either use larger pieces of that attach to an undersuit that you wear
Amazon.
under the suit, but it's separate.
$28.
Or sew directly into the suit itself.
Yeah.
I've seen people doing muscles with there's sort of pockets attached directly to the.
It's Nicodemus's book.
Oh, good.
We could give a plug for this book real quick.
Well, yeah, I'm in it. I built this one.
Yay!
Autograph.
And this one, and this one.
And those two. And this one over here.
Deborah's here.
That book actually has a lot of really good tips on construction and performance and everything.
It's called Critter Costuming. I believe it's available on Amazon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$28 new, $78 used.
$78 used.
Yeah, don't ask me why, but
Is it autographed? Did I autograph it or something?
I don't know.
It comes with a fursuit?
Oh, please.
$78 first.
Comes with the materials?
Well, Yippee can autograph it and you can sell it for $78.
Yeah, there you go.
Autograph.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
So what I was thinking for the suit I have in mind is making it like a shirt and then like have two different pair of pants.
Mm-hmm.
And then just using like Velcro straps inside of them or button straps to hold it together. Have you ever heard of a fursuit like that?
You can build over clothes. Are you talking about like furring the shirt and the pants?
Well,
or?
no, I would basically like make the fursuit, but I'd make it into different parts so I could have like different like patterns of fur for the legs to swap in and
Okay.
out.
Yeah, I know people have constructed those. A lot of people do that because they're doing like a partial. And you can take off the top part of your suit if you want to. Yeah, and that's definitely doable.
But when you do that, how do you make sure that like the shirt, like you see how my shirt kind of like overhangs on the pants?
Mhm.
How would you recommend doing that to where it doesn't look like this, where it looks like it's one piece?
Yeah, it's like well, if you had attachments that were like maybe snap attachments to the top of the pants and the shirt, then something like this snap attachment.
Is that just like a button?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can buy these at Hobby Lobby or Joann's or
Yeah,
whatever.
they're I think the number one snaps, the largest ones, about yay big.
But they sew really easily and they hold up very easily as well. I had a question back here.
Yeah, for concealing a split like that, you could use essentially what they use on the flag of pants, just a small piece that overlaps it.
Yeah.
So you have the zipper button underneath and then just the little small strip of fabric there where it's more closed. So you don't have this large piece.
Large seam, yeah.
That's little.
You could do that as well. Also, when working with the fabric here, we mentioned a little bit in the head builders panel yesterday that fur has a grain, and to make sure that you're always working with the grain. For a bodysuit, you want to make sure that the grain is pointing downward.
Yeah, generally down, away from the neck, toward the extremities, arms, legs.
And with a tail that it's pointing outward. Yes?
Did you mention how to cut the fur? Because there are a lot of different ways you can cut it. One of them I've learned that helps us so that you don't cut the fur itself is to turn the fur facing down to the floor, have your pattern already drawn out, then use a X-Acto knife or one of those little box cutters, and then gently cut the back of it. It only cuts the backing, not the fur itself, and you're left with a little butterfly edge where the fur goes out.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent method for cutting, because if you use the scissors, then you're cutting the fur itself, too.
Never again.
Depending on also how difficult the backing is to cut through. Some of them are a little more sturdy than
I've
others.
seen some that have kind of a vinyl or a leather on the
Yeah.
inside of them. I don't like those. Too much heat.
Okay, so for doing that, my mom like makes some quilts, and she has this. It's like a
You mean
quilter's.
the rotary cutter looks like a pizza cutter?
Yes, she has one of those. Could you use that for what you were
Yeah, but you
describing?
have to press very, very gently so that you don't cut all the way through to the fur itself.
Okay.
But I would recommend the box cutter because you can control that better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk a little bit about hand paws now.
We could, sure.
Okay. When I make mine, basically the method I use is you can always just put your hand down and draw a pattern, you know. And not like that. But yeah, I just put my hand down and draw around it, and then once I've got my pattern down here, that was great. Draw better.
Lobster claw.
Is that a jerky?
You need a prop?
And you can do things like, you can do things like if you're going to do a three finger, you just put two fingers together, but you know, you just put your hand down on the paper and you can draw around it like you're back in grade school making a turkey. Now, you have that, and then the other side is the reverse, and then what I do is you would cut just a thin strip of fur like so, and you put that thin strip of fur all the way around here, and that'll act as a method of making your fingers larger.
Yeah, I have a slightly different method. I actually use something of a pattern.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll have the bottom of the hands, they'll be somewhat larger, making sure that it's big enough to have your entire hand in there. This one, yeah, well, maybe not that big, but you know, get the edges pretty close to where the inside of your fingers are. That's the method actually extends the fingers a little bit here on the tips, and then the other side, you're starting with just the fingertips, and they're wider than these. So what you're left with is they're folding over, attaching here, folding over so that these are wider so they cover more of the top of the finger, and this is covering the bottom coming up. Kind of follow that along, and this is attached to. Usually I have a dart. The arm fur will continue down on it like that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, this is a cool tuning style because you get those big fingertips and everything. For this method, I do things like maybe I'll say, okay, the palm is going to be a different color, so I'll just cut a different color fabric there. Like these, I have the long pile black on the top, and then I just did a palm of like short pile black on the back. You can also put in your fingertips here if you want to. Any sort of thing, but it's really easy. There's no real pattern for doing the hand paws. Yes.
So it's basically like two pieces of fabric, one on the bottom and one on the top for the whole glove. And then the seam.
At the simplest it is, yeah.
At the simplest, this is an extra step here of doing kind of a strip of fabric between the two. I think you just use the two sides, right? You don't.
Yeah. I don't add another.
It's just two different ways. Yeah.
How would you end up claws?
I know how to make them. I haven't put any in my suits.
The easiest I've seen is just making claws out of like sculpting, staging them, and then gluing them onto the fingertips.
I've done claws before. What normally you do when you make them out of clay is you leave the back end wide as if it was, tack. Set it down on the table so that it kind of flares out a little bit. Then mold it around your fingertip, then bake it. And then where the seam is at the very top, leave a little bitty hole, push the cloth through the hole, and then put glue around it.
Okay,
And that'll
yeah,
hold it in place, and your finger will also hold it in place.
That would work pretty well.
That's how I did it.
Okay.
Works
Yeah,
good for feet too.
That would work pretty well. Yes.
I've seen some where if you want really dexterous fingers, if you want to be able to like really control or touch stuff, you just have a whatever color your fur you want glove. Like if you have black fur, you get a black glove, and just do a piece of black fur on the back, and then you can do whatever details. You can put pads and everything on the tips of the gloves, and then you actually, you can really manipulate objects a lot easier.
And that's a style that I've used before, like sporting mascots have that.
Yeah.
You get like a sports glove, and you just put your colored fur on the back part of it, and then this part is your sports glove, and you can, like especially mascots who've got to move things around or sign autographs.
Exactly.
And everything.
I've seen.
Dunking mascots will do that.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of like if you've got to really manipulate stuff, you got to be able to like grab something or use something. It's a lot easier than having these big gigantic, fingers you're trying to fit through stuff or trying to pick things up with.
Right. Yeah, it just depends on the look and what you need to use your hand paws for.
You can also try something like what this is.
Is that does your hand fit in there too or not?
Yeah, see, watch.
Okay.
I can slip it back in. Flip it. I can't see one thing. Over.
The suicide slit.
Yes, perfect for going all emo.
And a lot of people use that slit as well. Just put it right there. And in your suit, you can get your hand out of it and do things, grab things if you need to, and then just put it back on.
You can either have just a bit of overlap for put a snap in there as well. Keep it on. I'd also seen where people will just attach the paws with snaps.
Yeah.
And they'll have one on either side, and they'll detach one of them so the hand isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I used to have these attached with snaps, and then I just made it all part of the suit. Now, this suit is all one, but a lot of people make a bodysuit and then hands and paws and everything. It just depends on the look that you're going for. I guess we can move on to tails. Depending on what kind of animal you're making, whether it has a tail or not. That foxtail that I have is a basic pattern that I think I just drew out that was kind of like that on the top and then a piece along the bottom that connected to it.
Kind of like a big bucket top.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff the meat in here and let your top go.
Yeah, you get foam or polyfill or what have you to put inside of the tail. And then along the back there, you have the tail coming out here, and then I put a piece of fur around here so I could run a belt through it, and then, so I can attach it to myself. Yes.
Now, is it better to make the tail detachable or like sewed into the suit?
I say detachable because it's easier to wash your suit. But there are some that if you can unstuff your tail, then
I generally would leave the tails attached, but they're open on the inside, so I can reach in, pull out the stuffing, and wash the whole thing.
like
So
if this
the
was
stuffing
open,
would be like in a sock, and you just would take that tube of stuffing out, throw it into the washer, and then put it back in?
What's that?
He's suggesting like you had the stuffing in its own little inner tube
No,
almost.
you just take, you just
Yeah, it's
stuff it
just
like
all the
you would like
stuffing
a
in here. You just take all the stuffing
pull the
out.
stuffing out, and then
Like my dog does with stuffed animals.
Yeah, exactly. Rip
But
all the stuffing.
I got a question for you. Wouldn't the tail have less washing because it's not, your body's not close to it, so you're not going to have to wash it as often as the suit?
Unless it drags
unless
across.
it's long, you're dragging on the floor. Or
Yeah,
sitting.
mine
Yeah.
wouldn't be that long.
Are people
Oh.
grabbing it with a grubby hand?
Oh.
Dirty
Or
fingers.
sitting on it.
With their awful fingers.
Sounds like a bit of spite there.
We've seen all kinds.
And
Yeah.
now for readers, it's not, it's worse.
Right?
I'm gonna shoot your tail. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Have one of them biting something.
But yeah, no, I'm talking about like a canine tail here. I've also got a bird suit, so that's tail feathers. Sometimes you have no tails. Sometimes you have
Yeah, short tails, like
pigtails,
little bunny tails.
little bunny tails. See, that's an easy one to just stuff and have attached to your suit. Is a little tail like that.
Yeah, you could easily make that out of open cell foam if it's a bunny tail.
Good.
What about circle tails?
Circle tails?
Circle.
Oh, serval.
No, those are short.
Short.
Circles and caracals have rather short
Oh, no,
tails.
circle. A circle?
Oh, circle.
Character.
Okay.
Oh, it's a flat snout. Very long tail.
Like a dragon kind of tail?
Yeah.
Like big, thick, reptilian thing?
Does somebody have a picture of a circle?
1 second.
I know that some people who have had like really large tails, here's the back of their suit, and then they have the tail, and it might be really long and everything. Looks awful. But you might have a connector here that connects it to the back of your suit.
Yeah, I've seen skunks and squirrels with tails like that. They'll have like a hooker connector.
There's that one guy with that tail that's like as large as he is.
Yeah.
And then he just trot around, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I think it was a girl.
no,
guy.
it's a guy.
There was a girl who had like a 6-foot-long tail.
I
Oh, she carried it.
I don't like to have huge tails that are dragging the ground and all you're doing is picking up dirt. So if you do have a large tail like that, I would think about having some sort of, okay, you can do something also with, I know people have used like piping and stuff.
Yeah,
Wire.
using piping or wire or some
Yeah,
sort
if
of
you
weird
use like
structure.
let's say like a wire loop like that, and then you build your tail around it and stuff it, then maybe you have some sort of back pad here with a belt, and then it'll keep the tail up.
As long as you
and
don't use stuffing that's heavier than the wire can handle.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
want to
Something-
loosely stuff it.
And attaching here, I've seen people using like a weight belt, something that with some depth, some height to it,
Yeah.
so it's not gonna wobble too much.
Or just stick you in one point. You want to have a little bit of surface area back there. What?
So your back doesn't bend.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or something slack. Yes?
I've seen people doing, more on the feline tails, where they'll do a length of chain, and an actual sway to it, and then wrap that with batting, and then, if you had any experience with that?
Beanbag. Chain.
I've seen someone using a plastic bicycle chain type of thing to add some inner
Oh,
structure,
to
inner
make
weight,
it
to
like-
give it some sway back and
Okay.
forth.
Okay.
There's some weight to it, so it will have some momentum as it's going.
So you can, a friend of mine went,
Do like a little
friend
bit
of mine went one step further. He actually put a chain, and he had a padlock in it
Okay.
at the end.
You could also use like
Sounds a little dangerous.
solid.
Yeah, that was the point. It was defensive.
Touch my suit.
Use like a. What is it? I think it's made out of Kevlar, not like it's a solid Kevlar. Like I've seen like floggers that are basically like a strip of. They look like plastic, but they're actually made out of like Kevlar. It's just been melted down to a solid tube, and it's quite flexible and springy,
Oh.
and very light. So you could just put one of those down the middle of the tail, and
Like
it would
what
have
you
nice
use
sway
on a
to it.
dryer. I could imagine using one of those dryer vents
Like
that's,
a hose? Like
Yeah, that's hollow on the inside and it's got the spring and it wiggles really, really easily. Putting that on the inside.
Hey, if you got an idea, try it out.
I'm going to.
Costume shopping at Home Depot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of stuff that you get costume shopping.
Costume shopping, costume.
Probably one of the more elaborate but usable ones I've seen is PVC pipe pieces and zip ties, and you just build a mesh where you're attaching the PVC pieces with zip ties all the way down, and the tail actually has a whole individual sway to it, and it has weight to it. Yeah, it looks like a snake toy.
Yeah.
Almost like its own skeletal system.
And there's tutorials online.
Okay.
I know that guy.
There's tutorials on everything. How to make it go away.
Tutorials
We're just-
break laws.
We're talking about basic stuff, but yeah, if you want to get into that whole making it sway, making it wag kind of stuff, you can go. Make it fly. Yes.
For my tail, my first tail, I used a pool noodle.
Okay, yeah. That would give it some.
What? A what?
A pool noodle? They're like little round, yeah. Stuff you feed your friends with. End up with feet paws?
I think a couple other
Oh.
things on the tail.
Go ahead.
Well, I've seen people doing larger tails with a big inner structure of like a foam piece that may start with a diameter like this big and extend a certain distance out from it, from the body. It's attached, well, either attached or it's it's separate from the bodysuit, and it's a foam piece that fits in basically a furry fuzzy pocket that the inner foam piece, you can add belt loops to it so that it will attach and allow it to wag with your body. This is how I've seen some alligators doing their suits. But this is a separate piece that comes out of this, so you can wash the whole body and not have to worry about this piece. There are people who do husky tails that are actually foam and sewn to the body. It makes it a little difficult to wash it because you get this piece of foam inside fur, and you have to either wash the whole thing and make sure you get all the moisture out of the foam piece, or as they unstitch into it from the suit.
How do you go about washing this stuff?
My tails and such as far as entire bodies and such.
Yeah.
I just throw it in the washer actually. I throw it in the wash on cold, definitely cold. Nothing, no, not even warm, just cold everything.
Delicates?
I've done delicates before. It's very
If it fits in the wash.
true. It depends also how much there's padding involved and such. I've seen some suits that are really big that a guy had to take it to one of the laundromats with the 3-load washers.
I wouldn't. For me, when I do my suits, I put it in the bathtub. I'll run it with laundry detergent and just hand wash it. Yeah, hand agitate it. Drain the tub, let it drain a bit, and then put back cold water, get all the soap out, let it drain out, and then squeeze it, try to get all the water out. It's going to be heavy because it's wet fur. So get a hamper, and I put it in the hamper, and I quickly run it to a washing machine, and then let it spin all of the water out.
There's a couple.
I just don't want to have all that fur when it's wet in the machine. Yeah, it's just, I'd rather do it all by hand, but it's up to you.
There's one video out there on YouTube where a guy's doing a lot of that in the bathtub. I think he uses woolite and baking soda and stuff like that. And apparently he did a lot of mascotting. So he says, "Well, I bring it home. You put it in, the water turns yellow because of all the beer that was spilled on it."
Well, baking soda
It's not all
is
beer.
really good at getting rid of smells.
Yeah, I've heard people use woolite. I just have used detergent.
Yeah.
Really
He said not to use too much of it or else it causes some other problems. So you Said not to use a lot.
If you use too much baking soda, it can have a mild bleaching effect on cotton fabrics, I found out. But acrylics, it seems to be very resilient to having any kind of baking soda problems.
But definitely no dry cleaning, and do not put your suits in the dryer. Also, since this is all plastic, it's not real fur. So dry cleaning or high temperatures will melt all of the fur. Everything. Yes. They'll mat it down and it'll look awful.
So how do you dry? Hang it outside?
Once I spin all the water out, I let it hang up for a day and then I brush it out. It's all set to go.
Yeah, the spin cycle will take a lot of the moisture out. If you want, you can put a fan on it to help blow air on it.
I usually just stick it in my garage with a fan.
I like to freak out the neighbors because I can yell over golfers that pass by.
We have a clothesline.
Oh, then you can do that too.
So are these normal fur fabrics? Are they basically like acrylic? Is that what acrylic, or what kind of fabric are they?
I think the fur is plastics. Yeah.
Well, because I put acrylic shirts in the dryer before, and they come out just fine.
But this is a fine mesh of acrylics. It's not like gonna catch on fire, but it'll mat your fur down.
I've seen suits that they start out as a husky, they come out as a poodle.
I'm not saying you can put it in the dryer, and maybe you put it in the dryer and you're going, thanks for lied, this came out fine, but do you want to chance it?
What about on like the really low temperature setting?
You might be able to put it in on like, is there a no heat?
If you have no air
Fluff.
fluff,
Yeah, fluff, yeah.
that's an option, but as long as
I
you
do
really
this
trust your
bodysuit on air fluff.
Okay, and that works out
It
fine,
does
yeah.
work. You want to do
You just don't want to do any heat.
no heat, zero heat at all.
But isn't the agitation of the dryer hard on the suit? You know, just matted up or something like that, or
Now your fur will it'll get matted up while it's going through there, but that's normal. Once you hang it and then you brush it out, it'll be all fluffy again.
After it's dry.
Yeah, after it's dry.
I generally wash my suits inside out. I usually find that's funk out of it after the vacuum. Wash the vacuum.
You brought the fun.
what about? I know she didn't mention anything about wearing some of those inner liners and stuff like that. You know, to kind of catch all the sweat and stuff like that.
I don't line my suits. Some people do. I usually just wear like Under Armour or something.
Yeah, that's what I've seen most people do. They'll wear Under Armour and they can wash that separately from the suit.
And what's great about that at a con is you can actually stick that in your sink and give it a quick rinse and hang it up.
No,
in a few
what
hours.
is that? Is that like what you get at a skin diving place or something like that?
It's sporting good.
Sporting good.
Academy or whatever.
This is just a spandex shirt and shorts.
Uh huh.
See like a full body sock.
Like full body spandex.
Yeah, that's just no problem.
Work suits.
That's what it's some kind of diving suit that they got. That's inner liner that's like
Any
that.
of that is good because it's gonna catch some of the sweat, keep it out of your suit, and you can give it a quick wash at a con and then go later. Years and years ago when I used to suit and like you'd wear shorts and a t-shirt under there. And at the end of the con you had so many soaked t-shirts it wasn't funny and they just do not dry out. And then you have to pack your luggage with soaked t-shirts. Yes.
We have 15 minutes, but we should probably move on to foot
Oh, okay.
calls.
Do you know a lot about foot?
A whole lot. I mean,
Okay.
12:44.
my quick tip is buyhappyfeet.com. They're the bedroom slippers that look like sneakers.
Yeah.
It's an easy cheat.
That's an easy cheat for
You're
your
running late, you haven't finished your suit.
Yeah, they look like big, fluffy sneakers. You can do that. Oh, okay. I use, Walmart. I usually construct over a bedroom slipper and then carve foam around it. Yes.
Walmart has some great like bedroom slippers. They're like bedroom slippers. They look exactly like animal feet. They have like wool fur, and they have like the fluffy fur right around the ankles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got a pair of those.
You could dye them whatever color you want. You can just airbrush them. They look great.
Yeah, if you've got something find something that matches, that's a good cheat there.
But yeah, usually I get those like $3 like old man kind of slippers. And then what I do is I'll construct the toes off of it in the foam, you're gonna have your toes here. Coming up here, and then I'll have the fur coming down, and then maybe you do a little bit of elastic, or it depends on whether you're going to wear it outside the main body or inside the main body. You might have elastic and pull it in and then put the main body fur over it, or you may flip it over if you want to give more puffy bottom leg look. Yes?
One thing I'd like to do that it works really well in keeping the bottom part of the paw pad from wearing out. If you take flip-flop foam, just buy some cheapo pink flip-flops. Make a pattern for paw pads, trace them, cut them out, and then using either hot glue or some form of foam glue and tacking them on the bottom, it looks really good and it helps keep the bottom of the shoe from wearing out.
Another thing I use is they have kind of flooring at Walmart, like the rubber flooring. You can get a chunk of the mat and then just draw around it, and you can cut it as big as you want to, and that's cheap as well. Yes,
I've made a couple of the foot pad or the feet paws, and I found that it's really helpful if you're making a partial that's a little bit longer and you need more support. Is if you buy an old slipper, you do with the foam toes, and then for the slipper you take a pair of socks, high socks that have good, strong, elastic, tight socks, and actually cut out the bottom of the foot and sew it onto the slipper. Then you can just sew the fur onto the sock, and it'll keep up. You don't have to worry about, and it's forgiving with the fur, because especially I use like a bright colored sock. If I'm like a black dog, I use a pink sock, and then you can actually see where there's any seams that aren't good.
Right.
It's easy to cut out a piece that's the right shape and just sew it on real quick. You can sew it directly to the sock. Easy.
Sounds good, yeah. And I know a lot of people also been doing digitigrade legs and stuff, where you have, I think that what they do is they put a piece of foam and then this comes out like that.
Usually that part is built into the body padding.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I have not done any of that, so I don't really know how they do it.
Just quick.
You want me to rinse there?
This is in here. Generally, you will, it's a simple idea, you're imitating the idea of digitigrade legs by adding padding in certain places to make it seem like your knee is here, you have an ankle here, and you may want to make the toes bigger over top of the toes. So this is, it gives the illusion of that, and your knee is like under here. You may want to experiment with that. You don't want to extend this knee too far down, because it will stretch or be in the wrong place and won't stretch properly.
I've also seen a lot of people doing this kind of like, you've got your leg here, doing kind of like a clompy leg look, where you've got a knee, but then it just kind of goes down like this to give kind of a big ploddy look.
And this is like elephants do.
And this is just all like foam cut in down here. So you can get sheet foam. It's like, what, a half-inch thick or so sheet
You
foam.
don't want it too thick, because you're
Yeah, because you want to have a little bit of motion, but starting here, it would kind of just go down, and you'd have smaller toes, and it would go into that, and that gives a really different cartoony look. Yeah, kind of like an elephant. But I've seen like huskies and stuff. It gives it a real like anime cartoon look to it. Yeah, yeah. So maybe something you want to experiment with as well. Any questions? The answer, everybody's with us. You all know how to make a fursuit.
Yes.
You're all thinking we're gonna hire somebody to make this thing for me.
No, because I'm going to do my own.
Okay. Good. At least someone will try.
So you basically just buy like a cheap pair of Crocs or flip-flops or some of the shoe and build the foot paw around that.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing to do. Most people do. Now, I know that some people, if you're really active in your suit, you might want to build it around a sneaker. A good sneaker.
More support.
Yeah, I know that like Oki, he builds his fursuit feet off of a really active sneaker because he's doing a lot of running around. But if you're building it just to come to a con and hang out and everything, a slipper, some cheap shit is fine. Anything else? Yes.
What's the name of the author of that book? Adam Riggs.
Riggs.
R-I-G-G-S.
Murtaugh.
What's the title again?
Trigger Costuming. Adam Riggs.
I would strongly suggest that book. It is everything you need to know about critter costumes.
It's the suiting Bible.
And yay.
What's fun? I mean, he interviewed me.
What did you have to say?
Do this, have fun with it.
And above all, have fun.
Oh, definitely. Random side notes of, if you're first starting out, you don't want to overthink things, just keep things really simple, because you want the object of the fursuit is to finish it. You don't want to, like, shoot for the sky with, like, animatronics and stuff, unless that's your expertise.
Yeah, it might,
Keep it simple.
for your first fursuit, it might be too much to say I'm going to do the wild legs and I'm going to do like a muscular suit and I'm going to have an animatronic tail and everything. Just do a basic suit for the first time so you get used to patterning, you get used to sewing, you get used to some of the other things, and then you branch out into more wild designs.
Another side note, don't build your persona as your first suit that you're just trying to get done. You put so much emotional attachment to this thing that if it fails, you'll be crushed and never want to build anything again. Something that's sort of, a throwaway character that you might have a passing interest in, and once you're done, it's like, wow, I know how to do this now. I can do this.
Yeah, because it is a real bummer if your dreams are, oh, my persona looks like this. Why doesn't this look like it,
I was going to kind of look at the seams on this.
Oh, yes. Don't look too hard because I built it like 10 years ago.
Don't look too hard, it might fall apart.
Hey, it is 10 years old, or 11, or 12. It's like 12 years old now. Yeah, like, I'm not a huge machine sewer, so all of this is hand.
Well, my mom is.
Okay, all you can do
Oh,
my God.
You need a pendant, you want him to
Yeah, so I was gonna
autograph the book for you?
Oh, I appreciate that.
the
Yeah.
body you don't need to use. And then we'll be out of your way in just a second.
Oh, you're not setting up. I was told to bring it here and set it up where